Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? It is currently 4:17 a.m. on this still and silent Monday evening. The sounds of silence going into Tuesday morning. And I just got up about 20 minutes ago. And I was actually, I was laying there and I was like, should I just go back to sleep? I was so cozy in bed with the dogs, and I was like, should I go back to sleep and just get up in the morning and vlog? And then I reached over and I was like reading the comments on my vlog, and well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for all the comments. I really, really appreciate it, and if you could like this video, I would really appreciate that. I always forget to say that at the beginning of my vlogs. I need to start remembering on a more regular basis to say that. Please like this vlog. Please like and comment. And I like when people sometimes comment like 3 times, 4 times throughout a vlog. I love that. Like, you know, other things will come up and they'll be like, well, I already commented, but I love that. So it's kind of like an ongoing conversation then between the two of us. But there were so many things I wanted to comment on, and now I don't remember. A lot of people were commenting about the television shows that I was talking about, since probably because I vlogged for about 75% or 80% of the vlog was about television shows that I watched as a kid. But I don't know who said this, but I have to say, well, first of all, I want to just say, I think it was Mom of 3 or Ma'am or somebody, something like that, said that we probably crossed paths in Saugatuck, Michigan, because their in-laws bought a house there in 1994. You're very, very kind to age me down like that. But when I would have been going to Saugatuck, Michigan, it would have been, I think my dad moved his boat there. My dad moved his boat there probably the first summer that we were in our house, which would have been when I was 5. So that would have been 77 through me being in early high school. So when I was like 14, I think is probably when he stopped having his boat up there. And maybe before that, maybe when I was like 12, he got rid of his boat in Saugatuck, Michigan. So that would have been, you know, 72 to 82, 82 to 84, something like 77 to 84. Would have probably, somewhere in there to 87 would have probably been the years. But I did go there. I mean, there were other times that I went up there as I got older. So when I was talking about colleges again, when I was a senior in college, one of the colleges that I looked at actually was Hope College, which is in Holland, Michigan. And Holland, Michigan is like directly north of Saugatuck. It's beautiful. It has windmills and stuff like that. I mean, it kind of looks like what you would imagine Holland to look like if you're from the United States and you've never been to Holland. I've never been to Holland, so I don't know what Holland looks like, but with windmills and like huge, not fields, but you know, not mountains really, but hills of grass that like overlook the lake. And it's interesting because I'm really kind of researching that area right now. Because for my cozy mystery that I'm writing, it is based on the lake in a small town in Michigan. Kind of like a mix between like Cabot Cove of Murder, She Wrote, and when I think of like Saugatuck, but on a smaller level, because Saugatuck was small, and it was very much like when I was going there, it was a towny town. Like, I've had friends of mine that have like gone there now. It's kind of known today as like, the province town of the Midwest. Like, a lot of gay guys go there in the summer. It's, they do like, I think like a sailboat regatta in the summer, and they have like a big Pride Day festival. And it's really like lots of bed and breakfasts and brick and cobblestone streets and ice cream stores and very cutesy. And it was becoming that way when we went there, but it was very much still kind of like Amity in the movie Jaws. Like, it was still like a fisherman's town. Like, there were a lot of fishing trawlers that came in, I think that's the word I'm looking for, and boats and stuff like that that came in. So it was kind of like that kind of town. I also remember this hotel that was in town. I was actually talking about this to my dad the other day, and he like remembered the name of the hotel and everything. He was like, oh yeah, we used to go there. And he was like, that's where you lost me that Pac-Man thing. We went to this thing one night. I feel like we must have gone up there or gotten up there like a night early. Sometimes like my dad would have taken me out on like a Thursday, and then we would have gotten up there on like a Thursday night, because there were a lot of times when we were up there that like we wouldn't be hanging out with other people, but my dad's partner, his business partner, I don't know why, but like one time I said something about, I think like I said my dad's partner, and it like I think people were like, does Peter refer to his dad's wife, it's like, or his stepmother as his partner, or what's that about? My dad's business partner when I was growing up was like one of my dad's closest friends, and they both had boats in Michigan in the same marina. And at one point his partner had a sailboat, and at the other time his partner had a big crisscross. Is that what it was called? No, it's not called a crisscross. That was that band back in the day, right? A big crisscross or whatever it's called. One of those big, boats. It was like 2 stories with like a it was a really nice big boat, and it was like 50 feet long. Motorboat. And he had that at one point. So when they were like in town, we would always eat dinner together with them, and we would always like go out, like take our boats out at the same time, and we would always, everybody would go to the Cove in Saugatuck, which was like this really warm area, and it was right before you went down this long channel to go out to Lake Michigan. And so everybody would like anchor their boats in the Cove, and it was kind of like this drinking place, I'm sure, like this partying place. I mean, I didn't know it to be that as a kid. I just knew that like the water was super shallow, and like my dad's partner's wife, who was like also my mom's really good friend, she would like take all the kids like up to the beach in they had like a whaler, like like a little motorboat kind of thing. I loved that boat. And she would take us like up to the beach, and the water was like crystal clear, and you could, just see straight through it for like 30 feet out or 100 feet out or whatever. But anyway, I remember that hotel that we would like, we didn't stay at it, we stayed on the boat. I remember that hotel that we would go and we would eat, and it was kind of like, it almost kind of looked like places that I go and play bingo at. Well, I used to go play bingo at, and like, kind of like Moose Lodge places. Very dark, and just kind of like a beer hall, with like video games and pool tables and stuff. And I remember there being like a lot of like truck drivers. Like I remember like pulling in and seeing like, I mean, almost kind of like serial killer, scary town kind of deal, like where you'd pull in and there was like, it was dark and the parking lot was kind of like low lit, and you'd see like all of these, huge semis, their rigs in the parking lot. So I feel like that was kind of like a cross town too, between like a lot of stuff in like northern Michigan, Wisconsin, and then like, we're like maybe a stopping off point or something like that. But there wasn't a lot in the town. I mean, there was like maybe, like she said on there, like her favorite restaurant was something. Like, I don't remember a lot of really nice restaurants. I remember, and I think that place that I'm even talking about was maybe not the hotel. I feel like the hotel, because there was another place that we would go. I can remember going there with my dad's partner and his wife and their kids. And it was a hotel, and I remember, I don't know why I see it this way, but it was kind of like when you looked at it, it was kind of like, like a half of a triangle, if that makes sense. Like the hotel like went down like this, and I remember they have this salad bar. I can like even see some of this stuff on the salad bar. It's so weird. And they had this like really like flat pizza, and we all loved the pizza. There was something about it, and there was, oh my god, this tapioca pudding that I remember on there that I just like loved, this tapioca pudding. But there was like this salad bar that was like fantastic. And I'm drinking coffee and water. But isn't it funny the things you remember from being a kid? And then I remember, like, I can see that this one street, and it was a really cute street, and there was like a candy shop on there, and probably like a bed and breakfast, and it was like a brick street. It was like one street up. Like, I can remember like pulling in, and the street was like, you'd come around this curb, like there was part of Saugatuck that where the marina was, and that was like on one side of like this huge kind of like inlet. And that was on one side, and I remember we would drive all the way around and come into the town, and you would come down into the town, and down this hill, and I can remember there was all these houses down there that were kind of like dilapidated and looked like they were falling apart, and you could see that like part of the, not the lake, but the inlet from there, like the bay or whatever, and then you would come into town, and the place where my dad and would, you know, like I could play video games and, you know, he'd have a beer or whatever, that was to the left. And then I remember like to the right were like the 2 or 3 streets that were like brick streets or cobblestone streets that had like real cute little stores on it and stuff. And then as you came to down, you would turn to the right, and right in front was that hotel that I was talking about that was like triangle, and then you would turn right and go down into the city where like the houses and stuff were, where people lived right there. And I would love to go back there and see what it looks like today. And then on that one little brick street, like between it and the main street, there was that place called the Stone Mug. And I actually looked it up not too long ago, because I was trying to find the same kind of coffee mug. Do you guys, that coffee mug, that is like my favorite coffee mug that I bought from my mom. I literally would have bought that mug for my mom. Well, I have 2 of them. And I would have bought them for my mug, I would have bought them for my mom in like 1980 or something. I found those online, you guys. I could not believe it. So, but those I bought at this coffee tea shop, and it was called the Stone Mug. And I remember going into it, and when you walked in, it was like if I ever owned like a coffee bookstore, it's exactly what I would want it to look like. You like walked in, and I can remember there was always like new agey kind of like soft music playing in the background. Like this, used to be this artist here in Indianapolis. Her name was Carrie Newcomer. It was like always kind of like that kind of music, like somebody singing, but it was very new agey. I wonder what happened to her. I used to love her in high school. She always sang at like Earth Day festivals and stuff. But anyway, and you would walk in, and there was like these like, you know, big rugs, colorful rugs, and like an old dilapidated kind of like velvet couch. And then there were all these huge bookshelves, and when you went to go order, you could get it in like a mug that she had there. I think she or he or they or whatever had there, or you could get it to go. But I remember I always got tea, because I were hot chocolate, but I was a big tea drinker when I was a little kid. I loved tea. And so I would get tea, and I think I'm kind of starting to lean towards being a tea drinker again. Like, not exclusively, because I still love coffee, obviously, but I really I'm starting to love tea again. And then I remember in the back, there was like a fireplace, and there were like 2 chairs and a couch back there, and like a big like bookshelf, and you could like buy, I feel like it was like a bookstore coffee shop kind of deal. And I remember like it was something we were there for. Maybe it was for like, we got down there early, and it was like Mother's Day weekend or whatever, or the following weekend was gonna be Mother's Day or something, and I bought those for my mom. Those mugs, which is crazy that, you know, I still have them all these years later. But I love those mugs. My mom always drank out of those mugs, which is so crazy to me when I think back on that. You can see right in there to where their stalls are and stuff at the Humane Society. So no, unfortunately, I wouldn't have been there in 1994, but I will say this. So when I was thinking about going to Hope College. I don't even know if I applied, but I think I applied because my friends, 3 friends and I, we went up and we actually stayed in, I think we stayed in Saugatuck, Michigan for the night. We went to Chicago one of the nights too, but maybe we stayed in Holland, Michigan. I don't remember, but we went up there because I was like looking at the campus, supposedly. I just remember like we drank a lot in a hotel room one night. That's what I remember. But I remember we went up there, and that would have been in the spring of 90. Maybe it was me and 2 of my friends, because I can see 2 of my friends being there. I think that was the last time that I ever went up there. So 30 years I haven't been there. But you know, from time to time, like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, I'll see like friends of mine that go there for the weekend, for like Pride weekend or whatever. I feel like this guy that I knew in high school, well, like elementary, junior high, and high school, he ended up coming out later, and I feel like he and his partner bought some business in Saugatuck, Michigan. I think they sold it later. But I feel like for a while they lived in Saugatuck and they had like owned a business there. I don't know why I feel that way. I feel like I saw pictures or something. I mean, I know I saw pictures of some kind of business that they owned, but I don't know if it was in Saugatuck or around there. But anyway, so I saw that comment, that was a fun comment. And then somebody was talking about the people were asking me like, did I ever watch this show? Did I ever watch that show? The competition of the network stars like sounds vaguely familiar to me, but I don't remember that like off the top of my head. But I will tell you what I do remember is the Disney movie of the week. Okay, this was so funny when somebody commented it, and they even said the they said not like real popular movies, but like the Apple Dumpling Gang. And do you know what is so weird about that is that I can totally see the cover of the Apple Dumpling Gang like on like a VCR tape that you could rent like in a store. Like I can remember that being like a movie you could rent when you went to, because I don't know if people will remember this, but for a really, really long time, this thing is like kind of driving me crazy because there's like, it's like sticking up over here. But for a really long time, this is a big reason why I don't know a lot of Disney movies. You could not get Disney movies on VCR. Do you remember that? Like that was a really, really, really big deal. And I just kind of like remembered it tonight, just really kind of now, honestly, was that you couldn't rent, like Disney movies didn't come out on VCR until like later, like maybe like when I was in high school or something, and they started coming out. And for a long time, they wouldn't put them out on VCR tapes. And so there was no access to get them. But I do remember the Sunday night thing. And what is so funny is that if I remember correctly, Walt Disney would speak at the beginning of it. And he would, I feel like sometimes it was only like an hour-long show or something. I also remember like, I could be completely wrong about this, but before that was like the Jacques Cousteau hour or whatever, and it was like, am I going like crazy or am I remembering this correctly? But I do remember the Disney movie on Sunday nights. I do remember that. That's so funny that you brought that up. Somebody else was talking about how like when my video got done, it like started playing a video from 2019, and I was talking about how I had bit the side of my mouth, and they thought that was ironic. You know what's so funny is I bite the side of my mouth, like it's not just, it's something to do with my teeth. I bite the side of my mouth. Whenever I ask my dentist, they're like, she's like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know? But she's like, because I'm always like thinking it's like my wisdom teeth are like pushing through at certain points or whatever. And but like 2 times a year I'll bite my mouth pretty bad, And it usually takes me a while to get, like, over it. It always is kind of associated with, I don't know if it feels like my teeth are moving. I don't really know how to explain it. But in the past, like, whenever I would say something to my dentist, the last time I said something to her was when, do you guys remember when I had to go in because I was having like that horrible tooth pain? That was like when I had like the quadrants cleaned and stuff like that, and well, that wasn't the last time that I went in, but that was the last time that I talked to her about, like where it feels like I don't know how to explain it. Like when I do that, like my teeth, like I can feel that they're set straight, but I can feel something over here. I don't even know how to explain it. And I know just saying this right now, I'm gonna get 15 people that are gonna type in and diagnose it for me. So thank you, I appreciate that. But no, I don't know what it is. I do that like like twice a year. I like bite the crap out of the side of my mouth and then I'm lisping. Maybe 3 times a year I do it. Oh well. It is literally so still outside. There's like hardly anybody out. Well, I mean, why would they be at 4:38 in the morning? Although, you know, the other morning when I was vlogging, well, I feel like after 5 o'clock in the morning, I do see like some runners out and things like that. People in Indianapolis now that like run and bike in the mornings, they wear like all of these like reflection things and they wear like lights and stuff like that. I'll show you because it's 4:38, so I'm sure I'll see one here coming up soon. But I feel like this the other day when I was listening, was I listening to my audiobook or was I vlogging, or I don't know, but it was like 4:15 in the morning, and I think that's kind of like early for people. I mean, like even if I had to work at like 7, which means like let's just say if I had to leave the house at like 6:30 and I started taking a shower at like 6 or 5:45, like don't you think 4:15 is still really early to be like up and like running? My question would be, what time do people go to bed that you're up at 4? Not just up, but like out on the road in your gear, running down the street at 4:15 in the morning. Like, what time do you go to bed? 6? Speaking of which, my husband went to bed really, really early last night. We were supposed to watch RuPaul's Drag Race. Oh, this was something else I wanted to talk about. We were supposed to watch RuPaul's Drag Race last night because we still haven't watched it from last Friday, and it's like my favorite episode of the season. It's Snatch Game, and I still haven't seen it. And Alex got off work early last night, and so he came home, and I was gone, and he took the dogs for a walk. It was so sweet. Like, I came home, and I was, like, driving around the neighborhood, because I knew he was, like, in the neighborhood somewhere, and I couldn't find him, and I was like, where is he? Well, he had gone out, like, the back gate, and he was, like, walking down that side street, and he had Boo and Tucker in their harnesses and stuff. My husband and the dogs looked so cute. And so I like pulled up and I was like, hey, and he was like, say hi to your dad, he said to the dogs. So anyway, we stood there and talked for a second. Then he came home and I said, well, what are you gonna do now? And I said, are you gonna eat dinner or something? Maybe we could watch RuPaul's Drag Race. And he was like, no, I had Chipotle late, so I'm not really hungry. And I was like, oh, Chipotle sounds good. And he was like, well, do you want me to go and grab you some Chipotle? And I was like, you know what, that would be really nice, but I need to finish these videos first because I wanted to make a drama video and a Peterisms video, and I was getting up my review video and my booktube video. Did I post my booktube video? I feel like maybe I didn't post it. I think I went through and looked, and all my videos were posted. But anyway, he was like, okay, and he was like, I'm gonna go and just like rest in bed for a little bit. And I said, okay. And I filmed my drama video, which ended up being like 42 minutes long or something like that, something ridiculous. And so I called up to him and I said, babe, do you still want to watch RuPaul's Drag Race? And that was like when I was almost done like uploading it and stuff. And he didn't say anything, and so I was like, babe, and he was like, oh, I fell asleep. And I said, okay, and I said, well, do you still want to watch the show? And he was like, I said, or are you, because sometimes like if he falls asleep early, Like, and he fell asleep early tonight, like 6. He only does this like maybe like once a month or something, but like every once in a while, if he falls asleep early, he'll like sleep through the whole night. And I was like, well, babe, I said, do you want to get up and watch the show, or are you gonna like sleep through the night? And he was like, I think I'm just gonna sleep through the night. And I said, okay, honey. And I heard him like get up and turn the fan off and get back and put his pajamas on and get back into bed. And he's so cute. And the dogs were up there sleeping with him this evening. So I sat there and I watched, we watched RuPaul's Drag Race together, so I didn't want to watch it without him. So I watched, well, I was going to watch this new show on Netflix, the Mormon Murders, or do you guys know what I'm talking about? Mel told me about it. And so I started watching, well, I watched a trailer for that, and I'm going to watch that. And then I want to also watch Behind Your Eyes. I also want to watch The Flight Attendant on HBO Max. I also want to watch the one with Nicole Kidman on HBO Max. There's like all of these shows that I want to see. Valerie told me about one, some true crime documentary on Netflix that I want to watch. But I'd had a couple of you guys tell me specifically that there was a vlog about a week and a half ago where I was talking about like going out to gay bars when I came out and all this kind of stuff. And I was talking about like the impact of HIV and AIDS at that time, and just what it was like. I've talked about it on here several times, but that was like one of the times. And a couple people said I should watch this show that's on HBO Max called It's a Sin. And they were like, oh, it's a lot about HIV and AIDS at that time, that, you know, like you came out and whatever. So I had read this article on it, and it said that the show, when it came out, it's from the UK, that when it came out in the UK, like, it was like inspiring a new population of people to go get tested for HIV, and like the show is really opening this discussion up again. And so tonight I started watching that show, and like, you guys, I have a really, really hard time just like sitting and I said to Alex, I said, do you care if I turn on the TV downstairs? And he was like, no, because I just turned it on like low. But I have a really hard time just sitting and watching like a show straight through, like even just like one episode of a show. And I ended up watching the first 3 episodes of the show, okay? Like back to back to back. I could not, it's only 5 episodes. And the director, I guess, is the guy that did Queer as Folk. I didn't know that, which I have to say, like, I have a lot of different feelings about Queer as Folk. I watched it. The first couple of seasons it was out, I just felt like, and Queer as Folk came out kind of like, I can't remember how old I was at the time that it came out. I do remember my first boyfriend loved that show. So it must have come out when we were together, so that would have been like up to like my mid to late 20s. I just feel like it really, and this is a huge part of the gay community, but it really just showed that it didn't show my experience of, it didn't. I don't really know how to put into words my issues with Queer as Folk. I just felt like it showed a lot that like all we is a bunch of people that just go out to clubs all the time and just party. And I just thought it was like, you know, I don't know, like that just was like, yeah, I did that, and I've talked a lot about going out to clubs on here, but that was not my whole existence, you know what I mean? And it was like, the people on the show, I felt like didn't, I don't know why this is so weird. I can remember their names. I can remember like Emmett and Justin, and with the guy that drove the Jeep that had the great loft apartment, you know, and it was like, I mean, all of that was kind of a truism of the gay community, but like in a way that I feel like so many of us were fighting to be seen as that wasn't all that we were about, you know? It's like, it's kind of like very much like when like, I'm not so turned off by this statement, but I know gay men that are. When women will say, I love my gays, you know, it just stopped. It's kind of like that statement. Like, I don't really dislike that comment. I think it goes deeper than when, you know, women just say, like, oh, I love my gays. Like, I think it also talks about, I think it goes to a deeper level, really, if you asked those women about those relationships of them being safe, and them feeling like they can have conversations with men, but that are gay, and so it's a safe conversation, it's a safe friendship. And I think it's an interesting dichotomy between women and gay men, and this relationship that you are able to have that is unique and special to other friendships. So I understand what women mean by that. You know, and there are terms that gay men use for women that are always around the scene that I don't think are very nice. I don't like those terms. And I just felt like that show kind of like painted a picture of that a lot. But I think, like, you know, when like girls will say, like, I love my gays, and like younger girls sometimes, I think, well maybe like all, I don't know, but they'll say that statement and like they mean like the going out fun, let's talk about decorating a house, what kind of Louis Vuitton bag are you gonna buy, that kind of deal, right? Like, who did you sleep with and was he any good? Like, that kind of gay friendship that women have with guys. Like, I think that's the perception that people have when women say, I love my gays. And so, and hey, listen, I'm not saying that we're not part of that. You know, I'm not saying that we don't, some of us have that inside of us, because I know that I do. But the reality is that's not all of who I am. You know what I mean? Don't dumb me down to just a stereotype. And I felt like, in some ways, Queer as Folk, until the later seasons, I felt like it did that to some degree. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one. But I knew a lot of people that didn't like that show. And I watched it. I mean, I watched it because it was really like one of the very first shows that, like, I remember friends of mine, like, I have a lot of lesbian friends, and I remember when they would watch the L Word, like, they felt seen. Like, they felt like it was one of the first shows that normalized how they felt, or their lives. This was the problem for me with Queer as Folk, is that it was the first show where I felt like I was seen, or I saw myself in a show. And I was definitely more like I can't think of what his name is. Like, the guy that I always identified with was the dark-haired guy that was shorter, and he was kind of like the main character, you know? Not the guy that drove the Jeep, the good-looking guy, not him. I didn't identify with him. You guys are like, you were Emmett. No, I was not Emmett. But anyway, but like, and I think his mom was the one from Cagney and Lacey. Oh, by the way, that was another show. Cagney and Lacey and The Equalizer. Those were other shows that The Equalizer I loved back in the day. That reminds me of, like, it's Monday night, driving around. But anyway, Cagney and Lacey, my mom and I used to watch all the time. But Tyne Daly, is that her name? I think like it's the other one, not Tyne Daly. Anyway, she played that guy's mom on Queer as Folk. And yeah, I think another part of it too was that there was only a short period of my life. Okay, anyway, she worked in the diner, and it was like this gay diner, and they lived in like this, they worked in this, or had this gay district, and all this. Indianapolis didn't have that. Like, I didn't relate to that. That was like Boys Town in Chicago. Like, we didn't have that here. Like, we had maybe like a street that had some gay owned and operated stores and bars, but we didn't have like a safe place like that. We didn't have like a little gay area of town. I think people tried to have like Mass Avenue be that for a while, but it wasn't. And I also, like, I had like a couple like gay friends here and there, and there was like a period of my life where I had 3 close gay guy friends that then moved everywhere else, but like, it was never this long-standing thing, so I never really saw myself in that show, if that makes sense. Like, I just didn't relate to the show. I just was like, but like I knew people that, like I said, like my ex, my first boyfriend, he really liked that show. Remember, he had the soundtrack to it, and it had that song. Oh my God, that song! I hate that. I think it's that. Is it? Do you guys remember Martha Wash? She was part of. Well, I think she was from the what's the group? The Weather Girls. Is that what they are? When they sang It's Raining Men. I think she's the one that sings that song. But this song, it's like a club circuit. That was the other thing, is that I didn't go to circuit parties ever. Like, I've never been to a circuit party in my life. So a circuit party are like the white party or the red party, and they're like these gay parties where they're known for being like lots of drugs. And listen, okay, challenge me all you want if you're out there and you're like, that's not what a circuit party is. We all know that's what a circuit party is. It's where it's known for a lot of drugs, and every guy is like in phenomenal shape, and they're dancing with their shirts off and their pants off sometimes, and they're just these kind of like, they kind of came out of this idea of like freedom again for gay men, and it was kind of like liberation from like the AIDS years, which is what I was going to talk about in just a second. But anyway, I never went to circuit parties, you know. My ex, he was a DJ, so he started going to circuit parties with his brother. His brother was gay too, and so he started going to circuit parties with his brother, and I think that was another part of what like he loved about that series, and I didn't, and I wanted to settle down and, you know, like nest and read cozy mysteries. I wanted that 30 years ago, and I want that now, you know what I mean? Although now I want to like travel and, you know, have a place in Florida as well. But back then, I mean, I didn't want to go to circuit parties and that stuff, and so I hated that song, Let's Get Soaking Wet. Do you guys know that song? Oh my God, whenever, that was from that show, Queer as Folk. And whenever I hear that song, I'm always just like, so anyway, there just really wasn't a lot to me about the show that I thought that was real admirable, except for that we were, as an LGBTQIA plus community, identifiable. We could see ourselves for once, you know? And there was a lesbian couple in there, because I can remember the one guy, he ended up, I think, having a baby with them, and, like, I remember, like, I mean, like, the characters were stereotypes, but, like, I remember people that were just, like, everybody in that, you know? I don't know, I just didn't, like, I didn't watch it, and it made me feel good about the gay community, if that makes sense, you know? I was actually watching something the other day. What was I watching? I was watching Michelle Visage on Hey Queen. This was just yesterday, actually. And, it was from like 3 years ago, and I don't think I'd ever watched it before. I love Hey Queen with Johnny McGovern. Somebody must have said something to him. I was so brokenhearted when, so his co-host on the show was Lady Red Couture, and I mentioned her in my drama video, and I said, because she passed away recently, and well, probably 6 months ago now, and I said I just was brokenhearted about Lady Red Couture passing away, and I started crying in my video. And I said, please, you know, for anybody out there that, you know, knows Johnny or whatever, send my love to Johnny McGovern. And I love the show Hey Queen. I seriously think Hey Queen is a show that makes a serious attempt to actually be like a talk show. And you can tell, like, it's really, I mean, it's ran very well. And he is a great talk show host. He's a great interviewer. And like, literally, you guys, I mean, it is one of the most underrated YouTube channels on YouTube. It doesn't get, like, it doesn't get the views that you would think it would, and it doesn't have the subscribers that you think it would. I think it has, like, maybe, I mean, it has a good subscriber amount, but, like right at 200,000 or something like that, I think. And he's literally interviewing, like, every contestant on RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul herself. I mean, he has Shane Dawson interviewed over there, which from like way back in the day, but it's interesting if you go back and watch that interview now. But he interviewed Michelle Visage, one of the guest judges, or one of the judges, not guest judges, one of the regular judges on RuPaul's Drag Race. I started telling a story about a friend of mine. Anyway, going back to the Michelle Visage thing. She was talking on there and she made a statement, which was something that I have believed for such a long time, and I think it's so true. And I feel like, to some degree, Queer as Folk played to the opposite of what I wish were true. And that is that as members of the LGBTQIA community, we should be supporting each other, okay? Publicly and privately, and working out our differences as a community. Because, you know, like, I mean, a community divided, we cannot prosper. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are like, this is where I don't really like to get into, like, the cattiness of, like, fighting with other gay men and things. I just don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I don't think it does me any good. I don't think it does them any good. And I don't think it does us as a community any good. And I think it makes us look foolish. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are like, if they can't even get along, why should we support them? You know? And she said that in there. And I was like, you know, we don't talk about that enough. That was like, go back to like 30 years ago, you know, when I started going to Pride Day festivals. Hell, Pride Day festivals had been out long before I was around. I mean, it started, you know, with Stonewall and stuff back in the day with the civil rights movement, and, or not the civil rights movement, the gay civil rights movement. And, like, we forget about the inclusivity of the LGBTQIA plus community and how we need to be supporting one another, you know? And I feel like shows and books and movies and things, I don't care, like, how truthful they are. I feel like that play to the opposite of that can sometimes be dangerous. Like, I felt like that car was, like, really close. Because I think that there are a lot of people out there that are looking for infighting within the LGBTQIA plus community. And I'm not saying that we have to all be best friends and we have to hold hands and, you know, sing songs of peace and prosperity. But I think, like, it would be nice if we could just agree to not agree, you know, and maybe get along and things like that. Like, there's a lot within the gay community. There's a lot of, like, clickiness and lack of acceptance of certain kind of communities. You know, it's like, I can remember when I came out, like, now, like, I feel like the last, I don't know, I feel like whenever I've gone out, like, in the last 5 years or so, it's usually when I'm out of town. It's like I see, like, groups of people that look very much alike physically together. Like, you know, like, you see, like, okay, like when we were in Dallas, you would see, like, these guys, and there would be, like, 3 of them standing there, and they would be, like, super fit, and one of them would have on, like, and tall and big, and one would have, like, a John Deere hat on, and one would have on, like, you know, a cowboy hat, and, like, they'd all have on, like, tight t-shirts and jeans, and, you know, one would have on, like, a cowboy hat, John Deere hat, and, like, a baseball hat, right? Very, like, jock kind of cowboy kind of deal looking. And then you'd have, like, 4 or 5 people over here, and they'd be, like, face, you know, painted, nails, you know, that, like, makeup guy kind of look. And then you'd have over here just, like, the regular preppy kind of deal. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's very segmented like that. And that wasn't the case when and that's never really been the case with me and my group of friends. But, like, when I first started going out, it was like, everybody was friends with everybody. There was, like, really no division or no divide. And I don't know where that happened. And I really believe that it started happening with the inception of, you know, because I kind of stepped out of, like, the going out scene, and like when my ex and I were together, like there was a period where we stopped going out, even to like the Connection in Louisville, and we just didn't go out anymore. We didn't do stuff, and we weren't really, like, other than being a gay couple, we weren't really like participating in the gay community. And so there was a period where I stepped out, and I think that was the period where like gay apps came around, and like hookup apps, and you know, like people on like meeting on websites and things like that, and people meeting on ads, like on Craigslist ads and stuff. And that was where there was like this whole beginning to like mask for mask, or, you know, no femmes, or no this, or no that. And I really think like that was the division within the gay community, where we started looking at people like, are you masculine? Are you feminine? Are you this? Are you that? Like, I think we started looking at people divided by not just, I mean, when you look at like old video from like the 70s of like gay bars, and they're just like, everybody's like dancing and having, and you look at the dance floor, it's like a mixture of people, right? And then you look at like back to even like the 90s and stuff, it's like the show that I was going to talk about tonight called It's a Sin. When I started watching it, there was like a scene when they were like in this bar, and he's like saying hi to everybody, and I was like, I mean, it's literally like the scene when he goes through, and it's like, well, the show's very provocative. I mean, he sleeps with a bunch of people, but that's kind of like part of the show of what they're talking about. I mean, and it was very true back then too. But there's this part where he's like walking through the bar, and he's like saying hi to all these different people that he knows. And that was how it was. Like, we were all friends. Like, just because we were different or didn't look alike or didn't have the same backgrounds or whatever, I mean, though we were all friends. So like, it's so weird to me today, you know? And that's one of the things I hear a lot from gay men is, and I still, like, even though this is true, like, you know, I love my LGBTQIA plus brothers and sisters, and I'm very proud to be part of the gay community. And I will continue to go out to gay bars and Pride Day festivals and drag shows and all. I love it. I love all of it. I love being gay. I love it. I felt liberated when I came out, and that was part of what the show was showed tonight that I was watching. I felt liberated when I came out. I feel liberated today. I love being gay. You know, I love it. But let's not think that our need to be cliquey and whatever is more important, and standoffish is more important than being inclusive to the next person that might walk through the door, you know? That feels out of place or just wants to feel accepted because they never have before. I think it's important. And I hear a lot of gay men talk about that, like, they've never felt part of the gay community. Like, they've never felt like they were accepted by the gay community. And that makes me sad, you know? Like, that makes me sad, because I'm part of the gay community that they don't feel accepted by. And I don't want anybody to feel that way, you know? And I think that we need to do a better job of... And I think there's a lot of examples out there of people that are like, well, why would I want to be part of that, you know? It's like there's a lot of fighting that goes on. Let's just not fight with each other. Like, why are we fighting? You know? Like, we can agree to disagree. Did I say agree to agree earlier? I think I did. But we can agree to disagree, you know? Or we can say, hey, I respect your difference of opinion, or, you know, what your stance on something, but, like, we don't have to hate each other over, you know? I don't know, it just... So I thought that was interesting that she said that. But anyway, okay, so I started watching a show tonight called It's a Sin. I watched the first 3 episodes. It starts in 84, and I'm at the point that I'm at right now, I'm like 86 or 87, which would have been when I was a sophomore in high school. So it's a couple years before my coming out, but it really is like, reminds me identically of when I came out. I mean, like, right even down to this apartment that they all live in together. Like, my friends lived at this apartment at 23rd and Meridian. I think it was called the Cottage Lofts, and I was over there all the time, and it was like 2 girls and 3 guys, I think. And 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And they all lived together in this apartment. We used to go over there and watch Absolutely Fabulous before we would go out and dance, and they would have huge parties, and it was very much like in the show. And I think the promiscuity that they showed in the show is very similar to when I mean, it was like exactly like when I was watching this, and I was like, if anybody wants to know what my coming out experience was like, this is it. Like, this is what it was like for me in meeting people and feeling included, and that's why it makes me like sad, like, you know, when I see this stuff, that it's like not like that today, because it was, and it was fantastic, and it was wonderful, and it was beautiful, you know, and it was sad at the same time because people were dying, and it was a scary time, you know. There's a scene at the beginning of the show when this guy so they all like moved to London, and this guy that's moving to London, his dad gives him condoms so he doesn't like get a girl pregnant, and he throws him off the back of this boat that's like taking him over to the mainland. And you know what's so interesting about that is, like, I can remember, so that would have been like in 84, right? I can remember going out and like there were huge bowls of condoms and lube on the counters, like, I mean, and really expensive like gold coin condoms that were expensive, and lube and things like that were free. Like, you could just take as much as you wanted. All testing was free. They would have testing centers in bars, like HIV and, you know, syphilis and all kinds of testing in bars. Like, they would have it for free. And, a lot of, like, the drag shows and things like that were fundraisers for HIV and AIDS, and, like, the Damien Center here in town. And, in fact, Indianapolis used to have this huge thing that they did every Memorial Day weekend. It was called the Garage Party, and God, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And it was at the fairgrounds, and it was like this huge party where all the bars were there, and they would have somebody huge in, like Martha Wash or somebody like that, and then, or Taylor Dane, somebody. They would have, it was like a Pride Day, but this car is like tailing me. I don't like it. It's making me nervous. It's always these big pickup trucks out here. I'm like, what's your story, Morning Glory? But anyway, and we would like have these tickets that, you know, like you would, these drink tickets, and oh my God, my friend Duke and I, we would go around, we were so tanked at that thing. We used to have so much fun. But anyway, all proceeds went to, I believe, the Damien Center, which is like the HIV and AIDS Community Resource Center here in Indianapolis. And there was everything. They did all these kinds of things, like those calendars that I was talking about, those drag queen calendars, like those were money raised for that. I mean, it was like, there were tons of fundraisers for HIV and AIDS around Indianapolis, which they still do it, but they do different things now. They do like the Bag Lady Tour, which is like just regular people getting dressed up in, like, regular gay guys getting dressed up that have never been really in drag before, getting dressed up in kind of like hilarious, ugly drag, and then they go on this bus around Indianapolis, like Halloween weekend, and they go to, like, as a group, they go to, it's so fun to see come into a bar. They go into all these bars, and they, they have, like, you can tip them, and then all the money that they raise from that weekend, it's kind of like, you know, like those marathons where if you run it, they match it. It's kind of like those kind of things. Like, all the money raised goes to HIV and AIDS, the fight for HIV and AIDS, which is fantastic. This is one of the reasons why I took the Adam and Eve sponsorship, in all honesty, because I really believe in any company that has a mission and the fight that they're a percentage of their proceeds, 20%, goes to the fight of HIV and AIDS around the world. And I think, especially when you're looking at a company that is sex forward and non-sex shaming like that, I think it's really important. you know, that we continue to educate people. I don't ever want to get back to the point that we lived in, and I was at the tail end of it. You know, I came out in 1990 and the tail end of it, and watching shows like We Survived a Plague or We Were Here, like, it really, like, HIV and AIDS came out in like the late 70s to early 80s, and that's when it was such a big deal. And I didn't realize it was that early, because when I came out, there were still people dying. You would go to bars and you would see gay men that looked like pale images of what they had been before, you know? And I remember some of the people that had passed away. And I've had friends of mine that got sick since I came out. I mean, it's not like it's gone away. Like, I've had friends of mine that have gotten sick and have passed away with complications, you know? And just in, you know, the last 10 to 15 years, it's sad. And it's continuing, and it's preventable, and to some degree, you know, safer sex practices. There is no such thing as, you know, well, abstinence is safe sex, but safer sex practices. But I can remember, like, when I came out, and I don't know, like, they haven't really, like, talked about this yet. I mean, they talk about condoms, and you, like, at the show, I guess I'm like two and a half, I'm halfway through the third episode. Maybe, did I finish it? I think maybe I did. I don't know. But anyway, they're starting to talk about how to stop it and how to prevent it. And you start seeing how HIV and AIDS affects their group personally and of friends. And, but I don't remember ever, and I have to tell you, part of my, I think, in all honesty, like, part of the reason why I am even still here on this planet today, and that I'm not dead of, you know, AIDS, is because I was always so intoxicated. And I just think that a lot of people didn't want to hook up with me. And the other times I had a boyfriend, and we used protection. Like, you did not have sex and not use protection back. I mean, I don't remember that, like, I don't remember, like, ever having, like, a one-night stand or hooking up with somebody and it not just being a given. And I'm talking 1990 forward in Indianapolis, Indiana, with the people that I knew. I can't speak outside of that. And there's so much that goes into that. You know, when you talk about why people wouldn't use condoms and whatever, you know, there was a lot of gay men feeling like they were being shamed as a community and that they were being put down, and that people were saying that it's a sin, or, you know, like, this is, you're the one. I mean, if you watch it in the show, you can see it. There's a part where this girl talks to the doctor about how to educate her friends, and he's like, why would I help you with this? I think people forget what that was like. We easily forget what the world was like, you know? And, there's no way in hell in 1990, if I had tested positive for HIV, that I would have told a living soul. And I literally can remember the fear in me thinking, if I ever get it, it's a death sentence. Like, that is how I felt. I felt like my life will be over. And I was terrified of having sex with people. And I know friends of mine felt the same way, you know? And the majority of the people that I had as friends that became infected were because they would start dating people. And it was kind of like, I don't really know how to say this, but kind of like a rite of passage of, like, a commitment to one another that we're not going to use protection. And we've been tested and tested negative. The testing is completely different today than it was back then too. I think people forget that, and the waiting of testing and things like that. But it was almost kind of like this commitment. Like, if we're going to be together as a couple, then, like, let's make this commitment together, and then we won't use protection. Well, I mean, there was, you know, you didn't know what your test results were from 6 months ago to now, so you couldn't really say that. And then it was friends of mine that were, you know, be in a relationship for a month and be in this committed relationship and then get out, you know, I mean, and I think you were talking about a lot of younger guys that wanted to be loved and wanted to be accepted and things like that. And, you know, listen, I'm not here because I'm smart. I'm not here, and I mean here as in I didn't get HIV. I'm not here because I did things in a way that other people didn't, okay? I'm here, God knows why I am. Because it could have happened to me just like it could have happened to anybody else, you know? And I think that's what's important to talk about, you know, like, I think the difference is too, like, really back then, it really brought the gay community together. Like, I think that we realized, like, if we're gonna overtake this thing, like, we have to overtake it as a community together. We have to come together as a community that loves one another and is not fighting each other, right? And then we have to realize together that, I mean, and we don't really talk about this, okay, in society much, but, like, we single-handedly, as a community, took the numbers of HIV and AIDS way down, okay? And that is because of the millions of people out there that worked hard to educate people on HIV and AIDS, excuse me, get condoms into bars, get condoms into, you know, all these different places, educate people on how it's passed on, getting people the, you know, the resources that they need, you know, raising money for the prevention of HIV and AIDS, you know, getting medication out there for people that can't afford it, case, you know, management, all of the women out there that worked hard for the gay men that were first infected, you know, and now, I mean, it's not just gay men, obviously, it's all kinds of people that are affected by HIV and AIDS, and it's scary and it's sad, you know, and it's still a huge thing today, and I think we just don't talk about it, and I think this show is so important because of that, because I think it's important that we never forget what it was like, and it was scary, and it was really effing scary. And I can remember being like a 19-year-old kid and just wanting to go out and have a boyfriend, but at the same time, being afraid to kiss somebody or being afraid to just want to experience or explore, but at the same time being terrified because I just heard of somebody that died, or somebody just came to the bar on a Saturday night and said they just tested positive. And they're drinking themselves, you know, into their sorrow because they just can't believe. And it was that constantly. It was every other weekend hearing somebody else be like, I tested positive, you know, and it was like, and the thing is that today, hell, I know people today that I can remember testing positive when I was 18, 19 years old, and they've been asymptomatic for 30 years, you know, and they got great doctors and on the medicine and, you know, and the cocktail and things like that. And that's the reality, you know, but we didn't know that, and it was terrifying. And I can remember even saying to myself or saying to friends, like, if I was HIV positive, I would just end it. I just wouldn't stay here. I mean, why? You know, like, to end up like those guys that just are, you know, whittling away and dying with like their loved ones gone, and their boyfriends, you know, have died before them, and And you have to remember, like I said, I came out in 1990. I didn't come out when it was everywhere. I came out on the tail end of it. I can't even remember, or I can't even imagine coming out 6 or 7 years before that, which I had friends of mine that came out 6 or 7 years before that. I had good friends of mine that like half of the people that they knew had died, you know? And they would talk about them. They'd be like, oh, my friend this or my friend that. And I like would just hear stories or see pictures of them. Or, you know, I would be like, okay, so back in the day, a lot of my friends I had a lot of friends that were drag queens, and they would go to national pageants, but I had a lot of friends that were like, when there's a drag queen that does like a pageant, she'll have like 6 or 7 dancers with her, or 8 dancers, or 5 dancers, or whatever, right? So we would watch these videotapes of like a pageant. Like that was a big thing we used to do back in the day, was we would watch like Miss Gay US of A, or Miss Gay America, or Entertainer of the Year, or Miss Continental, or whatever, right? And we would watch these pageants, and like we would be watching somebody and they would all be like, oh, remember him? He was so fun at Miss Gay America. And I'd be like, well, who is that? And they'd be like, oh, it's so-and-so. And, you know, he passed away last year. And I think that was the other thing too, was that you would see somebody and then like they could get real sick. Like that's, the show showed it tonight. Like they could get sick and you'd see them 2 months later and they would be unrecognizable. And I don't know, it just was heartbreaking. The show is extremely important. The show is probably one of the most important shows I've seen in a long time, and it's really hard to stop watching. It's so well done, and the actors are just fantastic. I love the character Colin. Colin reminds me a lot of a friend of mine. Well, they all remind me of certain friends of mine. The girl really reminds me of a friend of mine that I had back in the day. This friend of mine, Jennifer. And Richie reminds me of my friend Duke a little bit, and who's since passed. And I mean, they all remind me of somebody. But you know, it's just it's an important show, and it's well done. But if you want to know what it was like when I came out, like that's the show. Like I sat there and I watched it and I was like, this was literally like me, like when I came out. Maybe not the promiscuity part. And like I said, I think that has so much to do with the fact that I was just drinking so heavily that like I either was passed out or guys didn't really want to sleep with somebody that was that intoxicated. But like they literally show like swinging doors of like, there's this one scene and it's literally like very provocative where they're showing like just one sex scene after another after another. Now I knew people that were like that, and let me tell you, it wasn't because of my morals and my high ethics that I wasn't like, it was because I was intoxicated all the time, you know? So go check that out. And recommend some other shows that I should watch in the comment section below. Like really enjoying getting back into watching some shows. Some TV shows. And what was I gonna say? There's something I was gonna say. Oh, I was gonna say I'm gonna go listen to my audiobook now by Colleen Hoover that I said to Tanya today. I said, Tanya, when does this book get good? And she goes, oh my God, I love that book so much. She said, I think she said, what part are you at? I said, I'm at the part where she is in this stolen red dress from Macy's. That's her you know what dress. And Tanya started laughing. She's like, I love those books. Tanya loves those books where it's like really some sexy, sensual murder mystery kind of deal. I don't love those books as much. I just don't. You know what I mean? And Tanya loves Nora Roberts and all of those kind of deals. She loves all of that, you know? She's like, oh my God, that book was so good. I think it's so boring. It's called Verity by Colleen Hoover. I wish I hadn't started it. I'm ready just to end it. And maybe I'll end up saying that it's the greatest book in the entire world, but right now I'm just not there. It's just not that great. So anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for all of your comments. It was fun reading them tonight. And what else? I think that's it. So I'm just gonna say a very quick and simple, if nobody else has told you this today, I love you. Like it says in the 4 agreements, always lead with love. Like I also always say, practice random acts of kindness, but like I always say, don't tell anyone. Most importantly, make sure that you reach out to somebody and let them know how much they mean to you today. Let's put some love, compassion, kindness, goodness, understanding, forgiveness, tolerance. Did I say love already? Yes. Amazement, wonder, grace, awe, hope, faith, and courage out there into the world. And I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. And it just started flashing that it's about to die anyway, but it also just started flashing that the battery is about to die. Glamour shots. Love you guys. Bye. Love ya.